everybody. Welcome to another Transport Evolved live stream. Happy Labor Day if you are celebrating it wherever you are in the world. First off, a little apology. I accidentally set the live stream to go now. I had intended to set it for 1 o'clock local time. Unfortunately, I hit the wrong button, so I'm going to take the blame for that. I hope that you are having an amazing Labor Day if you are indeed celebrating Labor Day. And we are going to do a bit of a live stream because it is a day off here in the US. And so thus the rest of the team are off for the day. And I thought I would just kind of join you and have a little bit of a chat about the challenges of buying an electric vehicle right now. Good afternoon, Christopher. I hope you are having a great afternoon. It is afternoon here on the West Coast as well. It's evening if you're watching this in Europe, of course, and wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good one. Obviously, not everybody is celebrating Labor Day today, so not everybody has the day off. But before we get going, I do have a little bit of housekeeping that I'd just like to send your way. If you've reached out to us in the last couple of weeks, and we haven't responded, please bear in mind that we've had a bit of a personnel change on the channel. And so we are sort of just feeling our way around at the moment and just getting used to some changes of people. We unfortunately lost our social media manager this week or last week. She's gone off to be a yoga instructor, which is really exciting. So good luck, Kit. But it does mean that I'm back to handling some of the social media and so the rest of the team, and we're divvying up between us. So there is a bit of a slight change. We've also got some cool stuff that we're planning over the next couple of weeks, which means that while we are going to try and keep all of our breaking news coverage covered as normal, some of the breaking news coverage we might not be able to cover because we're out of the country or somewhere else. I'm not actually leaving the country. I'm out of state all of next week. And then we've got some other stuff coming on later on. So let's dive into today's live stream, specifically what's going on in the EV market and what's going on with buying a new EV. Now, lots of people at the moment have... a lot of people have come back to me and gone, oh, what do I buy? If I don't want to buy a Chevrolet Bolt EV right now, what's the other option available for me to buy if I don't want to buy a Tesla? And there are some options, obviously, depending on where you are in the world. Obviously, if you're someone who was considering the Bolt, the chances are you are in North America, although there are other countries where the Bolt is sold. And the answer is right now, buying a EV, there is a real big shortage right now of brand new EVs. And the reason for that is that we have a global pandemic and we have a global chip shortage. And the just-in-time manufacturing methodology that has kept the auto industry alive and well, really for the last 30 or 40 years, has completely broken down. And so what we're now seeing is that a lot of automakers who were used to ordering parts so that they arrived just as they were needed on the production line. When the pandemic hit last year, what happened was the automakers cut their orders for microprocessors and chips, and their suppliers, their third-party, their tier 1 and tier 2 part suppliers, they also cut their orders for microchips because they thought that the entire auto industry would be really badly affected by COVID. Less cars were being made. The factories were being shuttered to protect workers. And what happened was these order processes got completely broken down. Now, you might think that if you're making an electric vehicle, or any vehicle, to come to think of it, that you order the parts and then the parts arrive and you can put them in the car. And you might think that's a fairly straightforward process. But automakers are ordering parts today for vehicles that they may not make for 8 months, a year, maybe even longer. And so it quickly backs up. So at the beginning of the pandemic last year, beginning of 2020, we didn't see a huge disruption to the auto industry, other than production lines getting shuttered, while automakers figured out how they were going to deal with working on a production line during a pandemic. And then we started to see cars start to roll back off the production lines, and we started to see cars getting to dealer lots, and people sort of midway through the year, if we're talking about EVs, while the general automotive industry sales really tanked last year, EVs in a large proportion of key markets around the world continued to rise. A lot of people were working from home. A lot of people realized that maybe they could buy an EV, or they could use an EV for their new kind of working from home lifestyle. A lot of people switched last year. But then at the beginning of this, that knock-on effect of the chip shortages really started to bite. And now what we're seeing is pretty much every automaker, from Tesla to General Motors to Ford to Volkswagen, everyone is trying to deal with the fact that they have this massive chip shortage, and automakers are scrambling to reinstate their orders with tier one parts suppliers, and tier one parts suppliers are struggling to reinstate their orders with chip manufacturers. Because what you might not know is that the microchips that go in your car, with a few exceptions, those microchips are produced by third-party manufacturers. They produce the chips that go in the parts. The parts are made by someone else, and then the parts are shipped to the automaker. And yes, I am wearing overalls, or as we call them in the UK, dungarees. Please tell me you're wearing overalls like an off-grid boss. So today, obviously being Labor Day, I have been busy working outside. We've been trying to strip our deck. Obviously, it's autumn soon, and leaves are starting to fall, and so our deck is in a pretty bad state. We haven't actually worked on the deck since we bought the house, so we're stripping all of the exterior finish off. My partner's actually just gone out to get some more, and then we go from there. We've got to lighten the wood back up, make sure all of the old finish is off, and then restain it. So yes, that's why I'm wearing dungarees. Dungarees sounds like an Aussie. It's what we call in the UK. We call them dungarees. All right. So chip shortage sounds like a great time to offer simpler and cheaper models. Not seen any signs of that yet, says Chris. Well, here's the thing. Automakers like to try and keep complexity fairly similar between different models. And it's sometimes harder for an automaker to produce a bare bones version of a vehicle than it is for them just to put the same screens and the same infotainment system, or the same similar parts in all of the vehicles. This was highlighted when the Tesla Model 3 was in production in its early days. So if you remember, Tesla was going to make the Tesla Model 3 as a standard range model, very basic, with manually adjustable seats, with a really decontented interior, very basic interior. All of the safety features still in the car, but everything else manual and kind of non-adjustable. And Tesla realized that it actually cost it less money to put in the fancier fully adjustable electric seat and some of the other things that it was going to take out. It was actually more affordable for it to just put them in every car and then turn off certain features using software. Same for the battery pack. It cost Tesla less money to put the same battery pack in and then use software restriction to restrict that than it would be for it to make two separate designs of battery pack and switch between the two on the line. And obviously there's the added benefit there for Tesla and any other automaker that follows suit. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today, is that this is going to become a normal. Software restrictions or software locks or software enables are going to become a norm in the EVs of the future, in the cars of the future. And so what we're seeing is they're putting in a very basic set of functionality in software. And then if you want more advanced functionality, it's being enabled through a software upgrade, whether it is a one-off fee or whether it is a monthly subscription. And depending on what you feel about that, it could be anything from turning on your heated seats or cooled seats to certain functionality such as Tesla Autopilot. We've got a video coming soon about why full self-driving is not being taken up so much. And as Dave said, will people be cracking the software? Absolutely. We will see people on the screen. Will says, will you be buying an SR Plus? Will you get an LFP or a Panasonic battery? If you were buying an SR Plus, would you get an LFP or a Panasonic battery? I think personally, I'd probably go for an LFP at this point. The Panasonic battery has obviously proven itself, but there are some benefits, some ethical benefits. Obviously, no cobalt in the LFP battery, and people seem to be enjoying it. And so there are some benefits, obviously, improved lifespan, so we can see at the moment. Any updates, says the germ, on that is a great icon. Any updates on the federal tax credits coming back for Chevy and Tesla? Not yet. We are looking on it. Stefan says the chat on screen is not this chat. Stefan, there are 3 live streams at the moment. So I was testing to see if I could send to 2 different live streams at the same time. So we've got Transport Evolved Take 2 and Transport Evolved Main at the same time, and also on Periscope. So hello to everybody who's watching in all the different groups. If you're watching in the main Transport Evolved chat, don't forget you can send us a super chat, and we'll make sure that we read that out on air. I am seeing that as well, says Christopher Hall. Yes, LFP seems to be better to charge to 100%, says Pierre. Yeah, I'd love to know if there's anybody watching who's in Europe who has an LFP battery car. I'd love to know how you are enjoying it. So I would love to know if Jay says it sounds like it's time to start an auto jailbreaking business. And, you know, this does seem to be something that we're going to see in the future. I think we're going to see more chips, more car software hacks happening, but there is also risk. Future. I apologize there. We seemed to have lost the connection there for a second. I'm sorry. We are also testing some extra. Starlink's been much better in the last couple of weeks. I can talk about that later on. EV as a service. What X? That will be X amount a month. Yeah, basically. We know that Ford is going to start charging for Blue Cruise. You get it for 3 years, and then after 3 years, it's a subscription. I think Chevrolet and General Motors is going to be doing the same with Super Cruise. We know Tesla is looking at that with its subscription. And one of the challenges, obviously, with Tesla full self-driving is it's 10 grand when you buy the car. If you want that enabled at the point of purchase, it's $10,000. Which is a lot of money. And I have some personal thoughts about that I'm not going to share here. So Julian was saying, what do we think of the IAA? I have seen some stuff coming through. Obviously, today has been my day off. I'm streaming this because I know it's not everybody's day off, depending on where you are around the world. I'm disappointed by the Volkswagen concept. I think the opening there of the charge port door is ridiculous. Winter and I had a little bit of a chat about that in our company chat this morning. I think that there's some great new vehicles coming from Mercedes-Benz. Very impressed at some of the design language. Obviously, a bit out of my price range. But yeah, we will be covering it more this week. Okay, so Henrik, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I love your thumbs up icon. That is very nice. Very nice indeed. Right, let's go back to me explaining what's changed and what's been going on differently. So we are seeing people who are talking about, trying to get hold of a vehicle and how they deal with that. Let me see if I can just remove my. Let's see if I can get that audio and video back on. So where was I? Right, we are at a point right now where automakers are struggling to get chips. And someone earlier on said Tesla seems to be handling this better than other automakers. And I'm not sure if that is necessarily the case, because Tesla has also decided to push back production on three vehicles now. So we've got the Model 3, the long range versions have been pushed back. They're focusing on the performance of the Model 3 and the Model Y. They are focusing on the Model S Plaid and the Model X Plaid. Some other models have been pushed back. Obviously, Cybertruck has been pushed back because of the chip shortage. Semi has been pushed back because of chip shortage, and Roadster has been pushed back because of chip shortage. So, and I hate to say it, tell me if the audio is now back. People say that the video has frozen. Tell me if that's still the case. I'm back. Hopefully you can still see me. Screen is black now. My goodness. So let's see if you can hear me again. Back to black. I will do my best. I can see video at my end. But let's see if we can remove to see me now. Can you see me? Now I'm back. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I don't know what that was. Let's just blame a glitch there for some reason. Out of sync, though. Am I back? And am I in sync? Good. I do apologize. This is what happens sometimes when we're doing a live stream. So back to blame. Yeah, I can nope, audio okay. Black again. Tell you what, give me 30 seconds. All right. Let's see if I'm back. I should be back now. I do apologize. This sometimes happens. So hopefully I should be back now, and it should be fixed. I did go and pull the plug on Starlink. So obviously Starlink is still not reliable for long stream videos. We do our best. We do our best. I'm clear and I'm in sync. Okay, great. So as I was saying, I do apologize. What we have with chip shortages right now, and people talking about, well, Tesla might be managing it slightly differently. Tesla is shifting its production to its high-end vehicles, which is what a lot of automakers are doing. But let's not kid ourselves. Tesla's production volumes annually are a tiny proportion of what your average mainstream automaker does. A lot of automakers are making in excess of 100,000 vehicles per month. We're talking about millions upon millions of vehicles a year. And so while Tesla has, lots of great, lots of vehicles that it's producing and it's rolling out, it is still having issues with chip shortages, but it is a smaller automaker. I suspect that it finds it slightly easier to be flexible. Also, Tesla has the advantage of its structure and also the way that Tesla is run. It's one of those situations where Tesla has an advantage over mainstream automakers because it doesn't have this this big overhanging structure that allows it to be very very nimble and very quick. Tesla tends to be able to make adaptations on the production line much more easily. And so it makes things so much easier when there is a major chip shortage for Tesla to switch in a way that mainstream automakers can't, because their designs tend to be focused on a very long design process where Tesla tends to switch things up all the time. All right, to be honest, why aren't we all demanding standards in EVs? I see endless waste on luxury appeals and numerous belly up stock issues. Waste not, want not. I would like to come back to that in a little bit, because I think that's a really important topic. Actually, you know what? Why don't we just tackle that now? One of the problems that we have as a market is that we have all got so focused on range and performance because everybody's trying to beat Tesla, and Tesla is constantly upping its game, that we've forgotten really what's important, and it's decarbonization of transportation. And so we've got a lot of high-end vehicles coming to market. Now, there are multiple reasons for that. It's easier for an automaker to charge a lot of money for a high-end vehicle, and it's easier for the automaker to recoup its costs than it is making lots of smaller, cheaper, more frugally based vehicles. And so that's one of the challenges that we're seeing here. Pringles makes some chips, but not very useful. Very, very tasty, though. I understood Toyota has weathered the chip shortage best, despite being the origin of, the cut everything to the bone TPS. They know how to stockpile some long lead job critical components. This is what's been happening. Yeah, Toyota has been stockpiling and doing exactly what it didn't make a name for doing. So before the just-in-time methodology, automakers would have lots of parts in stock. They would put them on cars. They would ship them out. The just-in-time methodology literally means that the parts arrive just as you're about to put them on the vehicle. You don't keep a high stock number of things in reserve, and that makes it a lot easier for automakers to get caught up when there is a global shortage. Now, interestingly, Toyota, Nissan, Honda, and other smaller Japanese automakers like Suzuki and Subaru all suffered as a consequence of the 2011 tsunami and earthquake. If you remember back then, it was a real challenge getting certain paints for cars because there was a tsunami and an earthquake that thoroughly destroyed the production line process. And I think a lot of Japanese automakers at that point learned that lesson, that sometimes having a little stock helps you out. In the case of United States and Canadian, and to some extent, I believe, Mexican auto industry, what we are now seeing is a dramatic shift in the way that those cars are not only made, but bought and sold. And so that's something I want to bring in here. And that's really where we're going. The idea of how we make cars and how cars are distributed is going to change as we go into the future. And it's very different. So if you're from Europe and you're watching this in Europe, it's going to feel very weird, what I'm just about to explain to you. So in the US, it is traditional for automakers to try and second guess what customers want. And they will make a certain number of cars when they are launching a new product. They'll do some kind of consumer research ahead of time to see which vehicles are going to be popular and which ones aren't. But ultimately, it's the dealerships that place orders for vehicles. And when a car is new, when it's just being started, what automakers will tend to do is they will get customers to place reservations or deposits. Very often they'll question those reservation holders. What do you want? What do you think you want? And that gives those automakers a bit more of an idea as to what cars need to be produced for the launch. But once a car has been in production for a while, automakers will order cars. dealerships will order cars from automakers. They will spec them up to what they believe to be the most popular options, or the options that they know they can sell, or the options that they know they can make a profit on. The car arrives from the automaker to the dealership puts it on their lot, and then they sell it to a customer. And in America, how you buy a car is very different to how you buy a car in most of Europe. So obviously, for those who don't know, you can tell by my accent, I grew up in the UK. And in the UK, it is extremely common for you to go to a dealership and you will test drive a car. And you will test drive a particular vehicle that you are interested in buying. And if you want to buy that car, a couple of things happen. And it's different for used cars, obviously. But if you're talking about a brand new car, you don't always have that car sitting at the dealership that you can then get in and drive away. Sometimes you do. Really popular models, they'll have a couple on at the dealership that you can buy. But very often, at least in my experience, what happens is you say to the dealership, I want this car in this color, and these are the options, and blah, blah, blah. The dealership will then tell you whether there's a car in stock at a local distribution center. They will place an order for that car, and it will come to the dealership from the distribution center to your specifications, and then you can buy the car and drive off. It's not like it is in America, where you go to the dealership to buy a car and you very may well end up driving home in your new car, which is very different. So in the UK and in most of Europe, it's very different. You go, you look at your car, you test drive your car, you decide if you want that car in that option. If it's one on the lot, you might get a discount if you say, I desperately want to buy that car now. Some dealerships will do that. But very often it'll be the dealership probably doesn't have the car in stock that you want, but they will be able to buy it from the dealer, from the manufacturer. They'll have a warehouse of cars that have just been produced, or they'll know that one is in production that fits your needs. You can claim that car, and then it arrives at the dealership a couple of weeks later, and then you go. So Jonathan, this is a good one. My Zoe was reserved when it was on the car transporter. Literally, I want this car. They don't have it, but maybe it's on the transporter. It's on its way to you, or maybe it's just sitting outside the dealership. You will go drive another vehicle and decide you want it, as opposed to take the car out that you're actually going to end up buying and test driving the car that you are actually going to buy. And it makes buying a car very different, because it puts the customer more in control, because the customer then gets to spec the exact car they want. They're not making compromises. They don't feel pressured into a compromise. Yeah, big seller here in Denmark has around 25 cars on the lot, often not more than 2 to 3 of each. Yeah, so if you want a red Nissan Leaf, the chances are you're going to say, I want a red Nissan Leaf. I want it in this trim. I want these options. And the dealership goes, okay, put your deposit down. They call you when your car arrives. And that's what happens. And what we've started to see in the US, Canada, and I presume Mexico, although I don't know what the Mexican market is like. I think that the Mexican market is a little bit more like the European market. You're starting to see car companies and dealerships say to customers, yeah, we've got one car on the lot. You can buy that if you really want to. But if you want this particular car, you put down your deposit, you put down your money, you make your order, we verify your order, and then we send it to the automaker, and the automaker makes it for you. And then we'll let you know when it arrives. Now, this is what we have done for a car that we've currently got on order. We went to the dealership, we test drove a lesser powered model, not quite the same model, not the same trim, not the same bells and whistles. We drove that. My wife went, yeah, I really like that. We went home. We then decided to put down an online reservation order for it. We then have to pay a little bit of money to the dealership as well. Once those things have happened, then we start the ball rolling. Then the car is ordered and we know that it's on the way. Now, that is a very different process to what you would traditionally expect in North America when it comes to buying a new car. Traditionally, you just go to the dealership. The dealership has 20 different cars on the lot of the same make and model that you want, and you see which one you like the best. And you might say to the dealer, oh, but I really wanted these options. And the dealer goes, well, if I give you this much off, and you negotiate. And so very often you'll end up with someone who, you know, they tell you, oh, my car is really lovely. I really wanted the green one, but I've got a red one because that's the one they had on the lot. And so it's a very different purchasing process. And I think that's what we're going to see here in North America. I know that Ford is doing it. Obviously, we've got a Ford Mustang Mach-E on order. The dealership has told us that, you know, we've put $500 down online. We've given the dealership $500, so we put $1,000 down. If we change our minds by the time the car is made and arrives, the dealership will give us our money back and it'll just sit on the lot and they'll be able to sell it for a profit because the car is in high demand. But in the world of chip shortages and in the world of constrained supply and in the world of battery issues with, you know, the Chevrolet Bolt EV and all the other things going on, it's more advantageous for an automaker to make the cars that they've already got sales for. And the reason is obviously parts availability is a pain right now, and it makes it easier for the customer to get satisfied. Obviously, Tesla has been doing this since day one. Tesla has been doing what do you want your car to be? Here is a Model S or a Model X or a Model 3 or a Model Y or a Roadster. Go take it out, test drive it. There was a period where it was pretty easy to buy a Tesla that happened to be in stock. But these days, Tesla does rely quite heavily on you order it online. You can have it delivered to your house. And other automakers initially and dealer unions kind of balked at the idea. And now everybody is going, actually, that's a really good thing to do during the pandemic. Now, does this mean that you're going to start paying over the odds for your EV? Not necessarily. We've heard some really nasty horror stories recently of dealerships, unscrupulous dealerships, charging ridiculous markup for a lot of vehicles, from the Bolt EUV to the Mustang Mach-E to the ID4. And when automakers go, no, you're ordering this online and we tell you how much your car is going to cost, it makes it hard for the dealerships to price gouge. And so that's what we're starting to see. Ford is going, this is the price. We already know that our car is going to cost us X amount. And so it makes it harder for us to be price gouged. And a lot of dealerships are now saying, we want to just have the car at the price and sell it on. So Christian, thank you. Nice violin playing shot. Yes, the Mexican new car market is like you've described in the UK, but a lot of people buy used like in the USA. Yeah. Just thinking, how would a Model 2 cope with someone from Liverpool, Newcastle, Durham, Scotland talking to it, seeing it's meant to come without pedals and steering wheel? We have some thoughts on Model 2. I don't think Model 2 is going to arrive for at least 5 years. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. Not with chip shortages or anything else. I just don't see it. As someone said, that's the process for a Mach-E. Yes, it is a process for the Mach-E. How did we spec our Mach-E? All right, so just to be really clear, it's not my Mach-E. It'll be my wife's Mustang Mach-E, or as someone said online, the Mache. It will be a Premier all-wheel drive, and it will be red. That's pretty much all the options you can tick. My wife really wanted the solid roof for the Premier, but they don't do the Premier with a solid roof. And again, that's back to economies of scale and cost of manufacturing. It would cost Ford more money to produce a solid roof Premier than it would be for Ford just to produce them all with glass roofs. I know the Select has a solid roof, but I'm assuming that is slightly different inside, and so it's easier for them just to produce one interior trim for the Premier, and to design it all with the glass roof. Just been reading Ford sent almost all of Mark E August and maybe September production to Europe, where it's meant to go to USA. Hence, Mark E USA has a longer waiting list. Push fear of missing out. So there's a reason for that, and my reason, I believe, the reason I think is that in Europe there are tougher restrictions on automakers who don't meet emissions requirements, who don't meet the EV production and sales targets. And it's a European Union-wide thing, I believe, as opposed to in the US, where there's a half dozen, well, no, there's nearly, I think there's 14 or 15 states that follow California's emissions rules. Some of them are ZEV states. And so those states, I believe, are going to hit their numbers anyway. The rest of the US, it doesn't matter. Legislatively, there's no rule mandating they have to produce a certain number of electric vehicles, and so they're pushing them all to Europe where there is. All right. Are you going to revisit Aptera and their progress soon? We are in talks with Aptera about coming down at some point. Yeah, we're going to try and do that. Congrats on the which car am I getting then? So do you want me to talk about the Bolt? Because I can. We can carry on talking about the Bolt in a minute. Greetings from Belgium. Just joined. Yes. The ID3s and ID4s were kind of restricted as well at the beginning, limited choice of colors, specs. Yeah, because it's easier for an automaker to just churn out what it thinks is a good combination. Now, someone was asking earlier on in the stream about decontenting cars specifically to make them cheaper, to make them more affordable. What we've started to see is, because of the chip shortage, a lot of cars that were supposed to come from the factory with automatic headlights or automatic wipers are not getting them because the chips are not available. And so automakers are actually choosing to prioritize those components for higher end or premium models and taking them out as convenience features from lower end models. But we're also starting to see a real reduction in trim and options. So if we, for example, were to go to the Chevrolet website, which I'm not going to because I don't know if it's still up, for the Bolt EUV, if you were looking at buying a Bolt EUV, which we were looking at an MSRP swap for one, there were certain types of options that would be really difficult to get. So if you wanted a Bolt EUV with the sunroof and the sound system and Super Cruise, they were really rare because GM committed to only making a certain number of those because of the chip shortage. And obviously Super Cruise uses a lot of chips. The Sun and Sound package uses extra chips as well because more expensive sound system, and obviously all of the controller chips for the window, the sunroof. So you could buy a Sound and Sun package, which is the sunroof and the stereo, the upgraded stereo, or you could have Super Cruise. But buying a car with both, that was kind of hard because GM was prioritizing on making more cars rather than making the top of the line cars. Someone says, Jude says, sorry to change the subject, but that bar of music behind you has been drawing my attention for ages. Can't quite see it. Need to know what it is. It's a G major scale in 4/4 that goes da 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 da, and that's not a G. I sung it out of tune. I'm sorry. How did the auto industry run into a chip shortage, says Bill? I think you may have missed the beginning of the show, Bill, but that's fine. let's talk about that. So what happened was COVID came along, right? COVID came along and everybody shuttered production facilities to keep their employees safe. A lot of car companies were worried about people stopping buying cars, so they kind of downplayed their orders. And don't apologize, Bill. It's totally fine. They downplayed they kind of reached out to their tier one part suppliers and went, we're going to make less cars because COVID. Their tier one part suppliers then reach out to the chip manufacturers and go, we're going to need less chips. Okay. So they kind of revised their previous orders. They pushed them down slightly. COVID obviously is really devastating to everybody. But at the same time, what we saw was automakers shifting their orders. And at the same time, gadget manufacturers, mobile phones, tablet computers, PCs, game consoles going, oh, people are going to be stuck at home. They are going to want to buy gadgets and they're going to want to buy a new sound system for their home and a new TV and a new games console. And of course, while lots of government incentives to help people out with COVID genuinely went to help people keep paying the rent and paying their bills, other people spent that money on frivolous things because they still had a job. And so they put that money towards buying a new TV or buying a new game system. And so demand for computer chips went up for the consumer technology industry. Also, demand for hard drives went up because there was that whole Bitcoin mining on a hard drive thing. And people were working from home. So people were taking their company laptops or their company computers home. And sometimes people were taking their laptops home and then realizing, I want a monitor in my house that I can plug my laptop into. So they were maybe buying the monitor, but they were keeping their work laptop. People were buying lights. People were buying web cameras. If you remember, web cameras were really difficult to buy for a long period of time. Headphones. These headphones, a set of gaming headphones that I bought just at the start of the pandemic, not because I was working from home and I wanted to do stuff, but because I just started playing a new Dungeons and Dragon campaign and I wanted a new set of headphones with a boom microphone so I could talk to people more effectively when I was playing and I could move my head around. It was before I had this microphone. So the chip, the electronics, consumer electronics industry, demand for chips went up. The auto industry had said, hey, we're not going to need as much. And then the auto industry went, oh, crap, we do. We still need chips, please. At which point the chip manufacturers had already signed their contracts with the electronics companies to increase demand, to meet the increased demand that industry was having. And there are only so many fab plants in the world. Making microprocessors, making silicon wafer chips is extremely difficult, extremely expensive, and uses a very specific knowledge set, just like batteries. So the similarities between battery production and silicon wafer production are very, very big. So very few companies know how to do it. That is true for both batteries and silicon wafers. It's very specialist knowledge, and they have to have really, really specific fabrication facilities. So if you think back to the start of the COVID pandemic, when a lot of automakers were switching to making ventilators and other medical equipment, it was pretty easy for those companies to switch because the manufacturing requirements were basically you had to retool your equipment, but you could still repurpose some stuff. So you can't just kind of switch a clean room fab stuff from one thing to another. And so as Danielle says, there's only 3 big companies really, all of the chip production. And so those companies have already signed contracts. They can't magically increase their production lines. And so the production facilities are like, I'm sorry to the auto industry, you have to get to the back of the queue. You have to get to the bottom of the line. And so it is a challenge. And even chip production for Cool Ranch Doritos can't keep up with demand. I like that. What does Labor Day celebrate? No, we're not celebrating people giving birth. Labor Day is effectively like a day off for the workers. It's a bit like May Day. Like most of the world celebrates May Day, but America doesn't, because that would be communist and or socialist, depending on whom you ask. And so it's basically the same thing, but it's in September. All right. If you did not know, the wafers that chips get made on are going up 20 to 40%, and the main chip maker's going to put cost up 20% plus. That would be, demand goes up, you can charge more for it, right? And it helps those chip manufacturers expand their production facilities. They bring in some extra cost, or they add extra cost to the end user. But that is why we are seeing all of this happen. So now we have all of this production, all of this cost in production, and that comes from the chip shortage. The automakers saying we're not going to make as many cars, telling them their tier one part suppliers, who then tell the chip production specialists they reduce everything. And then when they go, crap, we would like to see, we'd like you to increase our order again. The chip manufacturers turning around and say, get to the back of the queue. We've already got all of our production taken care of. We cannot produce any more than we already are. You need to go to the back of the line. And that's essentially where the auto industry right now is. Why is this going to change how we buy cars? Because automakers don't want to produce cars that they don't have buyers for. It's wasteful. It means that the dealerships are losing out, the automakers are losing out. So the new way I believe that we are going to start seeing cars being sold, thank you, Adrian, that's very kind of you. What we're going to see more of, I think, is that automakers will start expecting customers to order their vehicles before they are made. So, for example, let's talk about our Mark E. The wait time is about 6 months. We know that we want a Mark E in this color with these specs. And the automaker can then go to its parts suppliers and go, we have X number of people in this region that want this car with these specifications, which means we need these number of parts. So please order the parts for us. As opposed to what it was, which is, well, we think these cars are going to be popular. Let's make these cars, and then we'll worry about finding buyers for them, which is very different. Very, very different. And so what we are now seeing is that it's all pushed back up the chain, and build to order is going to become the new normal. It is what we are starting to see. Build to order. And that is why, if you are in North America and you are going to be looking at buying a car, your car buying experience is going to change. All the electric car startups and Tesla, which is no longer a startup. Tesla's a mainstream automaker now. I will fight anyone who says different. Tesla is now a mainstream automaker, and it kind of pioneered that in America. Obviously, in North America, it pioneered that kind of order your car and then have it produced to have. And I think that's what we're going to see. And I think it's what customers want at the end of the day as well. Because if there's one thing the pandemic has taught us, is that you don't need to go to a dealership to have someone kind of wig you out and try and convince you to buy something you don't need, when you can just order what you want online. I mean, think about it. I ordered a laptop recently for for our recently departed social media manager, and we were able to spec that machine exactly as we wanted it. When I was ordering an editing machine for winter, we were able to spec it exactly as we wanted it. We want it to be this color. We want the hard drive to be this large. We want it to have this much memory, and Apple was like, yeah, sure, we'll build that to order. It'll be 2 weeks and it'll be on your doorstep. And it was. And that's where we are going with cars as well. So spare parts is going to be made to order, as is with Tesla. I hope not. I think that would be a bad thing. So, but you can figure out based on how many cars you're making as to what your spare parts needs are going to be. And that's very different. I'm saving money for an EV. I currently have a 2004 Pontiac Aztek. Wow. That's wonderful. Wonderfully, how do I put it nicely? That wonderfully unique vehicle. Only has 143,000 miles. The 25,000 Tesla sounds good, and my drive from work is 5 miles. I would probably only charge once a month. Okay, so which brings me to Mike. Great comment you've made here. Which brings me to finding a car that fits your needs versus your wants. And those are two very different things. We've talked about finding cars that we definitely, we build to order. We have them exactly as we want. Now let's turn our attention to why it's a bad time to buy a new EV right now. Obviously, chip shortages. There are very few cars sitting on dealer lots, and that means that dealers can put the price up. Everybody, including Tesla, has got massive wait lists right now. Anybody who orders a new car today is likely to not get it until next year. But at the same point, used EV prices are going through the roof. So let's look at some used EV prices. So this is a list of used EVs right now in Portland, right? And this is something that we're talking about because a lot of people who are looking at buying a new car at the moment, and as well as some people on the team who are looking at cars, have noticed that the price of cars has just gone through the roof, used cars as well. And I would agree, you do not need a $25,000 car to drive 5 miles. That's true. You do not. I would probably... I think it would probably be better to spend money on something with a shorter range, at least now, and you may be able to get some extra money. And as someone is saying, Carvana is actually killing it right now. Carvana is selling a lot. So this is a good example, right? This is a Chevrolet Bolt EV. There is a stop sale on Bolts right now, right? This is a car that still has a stop sale on it, is being sold for $21,000 with nearly 50,000 miles on it. And this is a dealership that is actually generally pretty good about its pricing, but you'll see that that's not unusual. Now let's look at a Chevy Spark, right? A couple of months ago, you could buy a Chevy Spark used for $6,000. Now, 11 and a half. Now I'm looking at Portland, Oregon. It's kind of scary to see how much the price of EVs are going up. And why are they going up? Because new cars are hard to get hold of. And that's the challenge, right? You can't buy a brand new car, so people are starting to sell used cars for ridiculous amounts of money. There's another car that was very easy to get hold of for $6,000, $7,000 a couple of months ago. Well, maybe a couple of years ago, and now nearly $12,000 because people want to have they want to buy a car, but they can't get a new one, and the EV prices are just going up and up and up. Even this heavily modified Nissan Leaf with 9 to 10 capacity bars, it's got a degraded oh no, sorry, this is one from EV Rides. So let me read it better. But this is a car that you buy the car for sort of $8,000, and then you can buy the battery if you want for more. So you could add, more money to get a new battery upgrade. We did a feature on that company recently, but the price of used EVs And the price of new EVs are becoming quite ridiculous. And you're also seeing cars like this. All right. So this is a Mustang Mach-E. It's going to be a nearly new car, and it's being sold at a price that is almost the same as an entry level, as a premium, and I bet it's an entry level one. So new cars right now, buying new cars is just, or even used cars is difficult. Let's see. BYD EVs for New Zealand at the moment are able to be purchased from Australia via online. That's an interesting one. If you drive only 5 miles a day, why not get a Twizy? Because you can't buy a Twizy in North America. I don't drive much, so slow a moving car without running costs, side roads and cities. I don't drive much. So a slow moving car without running costs rules, side roads and cities. Yeah, that's true. Someone says Gone to Black audio good. Maybe we're having more audio problems, but it's not my end, I promise. What do I think of the Ioniq 5? How much do you think it will cost in the US? I don't think it's been priced yet. I think it's going to be a 50 or 60,000 car. And I think that it is a good looking car. I think it's going to sell really well. I do worry that this is just kind of another thing of high-end cars that are coming to market, that we're focused on high-end rather than low-end car. It's now, says Paul, is now a good time to lease a new EV. Well, okay, so leasing has some issues. Obviously, if you have a very predictable, and again, don't take my advice for any matters financial. Leasing has benefits and it also has some drawbacks. Obviously, if you have a predictable daily commute and you know that you're only ever going to be doing a certain number of miles every day, then leasing can actually get you out with a good deal, because you can lease a car for 2 or 3 years if you know you have a predictable mileage. Maybe you have a car that you own that you're going to use for long distance road trips. Then by all means, leasing is a great way of ensuring that you can continue to use your vehicle. But as someone who's leased a couple of cars, including my current car, I think from now on we're going to try and buy. And the reason is that obviously I have a very unpredictable mileage requirement. Sometimes I'll go through a month and I'll do literally a couple of 100 miles, and at other times you'll do 2,000 or 3,000 miles. And as Paul says, leasing does allow you to get rid of a car with a battery fire problem, but it can be a challenge if you're someone who likes to spontaneously take a long distance trip or needs to make a long distance trip. I know, for example, that my Bolt would have been very far over its lease. We would have had to have paid several $1,000s to get out of our Bolt lease. So there we go. Do I think that Rivian is going to have issues with the sheer weight of the trucks and mean gross vehicle weight? If you have 4 passengers, it leaves little weight left for payload. I think we have to be honest here. I think Rivian is designed as a lifestyle vehicle, not as a work truck. And I'm sure that most people who buy a Rivian are going to be buying it for the latter rather than the former. It is a bit like the issue with it is a bit like the issue with the Aptera. It's a car that has a very low gross vehicle weight, and so again, it's a vehicle that you're going to be buying for a specific use rather than as an all-rounder, and I think that is a challenge that we're going to see. But I think that's the difference between, say, the Rivian and the Cybertruck and the F-150 Lightning and all of the other vehicles that are coming to market. One of the reasons why we chose the F-150 Lightning is because we knew it would come with some pretty impressive load carrying capabilities. It's got a good 5.5-foot bed. It's built for work. It's not a fancy vehicle. I know parts availability for it is going to be a lot better than a lot of other vehicles out there. I can buy third-party aftermarket accessories for it and put it on. And so, that's why I went for a Lightning rather than a Rivian or a Cybertruck. We're renting, says Caro, our ID3. Mileage is somewhat predictable, the last year's average. Yeah, if you can do that, if you have a predictable place of work, if you work in a particular, the same place, you have predictable mileage, and I am not going to go over that mileage, then it's great. But if not, you have problems. An open source, free downloadable, what? An open source vehicle, free download, most of it printable. Where's that? I missed the start of that. So there we go. Coming up on retirement, so driving less miles, currently 6 months into a 2-year lease. So far, so good. In which case, then, yeah, leasing is a good option because I'm not going to be making a long distance vehicle, and I'm not going to be making a lot of long distance trips. I know what my mileage is going to be. Maybe you stay at home most of the time, and then you save up your mileage for long distance trips. Again, that if that's you, if you work from home and you don't drive a lot during the week, and okay, these are my 2 long distance trips that I make every year. Again, a lease is a good way forwards. Where are we? I fully believe TE is capable of influencing more demand for cheap EVs. I'd increase my Patreon support, a consumer scruples club or something. Yeah, I mean, look, we are very sorry. I have a really itchy nose. I don't know why I have an itchy nose. We've been spraying the deck today. So the challenge that we have in the automotive market right now is that automakers make more money on high ticket vehicles. And right now that's what they're doing because they are, depending on whom you ask, either being forced to, or they are making the switch to electric. And I'm playing with a Tesla Roadster. This is proof that I like Teslas, right? I have a Tesla Roadster on my desk, an original OG Tesla Roadster that I play with. And I have a Model S over there as well. It's a little bit out of reach. So cars that are more expensive, that you spend more money on, they are going to make automakers more money. And that is why automakers are selling them, because they are making more money. And so they can make more money. They can plow that into EVs because they're either being forced to make them or they're wanting to make them, depending on whom you ask. And so that's driving demand. It's one of the reasons why I think a lot of them are still making high-end SUVs and pickup trucks, because they know they can make a shoot of money on that. I nearly saw on camera. They can make a lot of money, and therefore they will to make other EVs. Bollinger EV has not been mentioned for a while. Any news? Will it come with more payload? We got a news press. So Bollinger made an announcement a couple of weeks back. I don't believe we did cover it. It was, we are making another open chassis vehicle. I'm not sure Bollinger is ever going to make it to market right now. What do you think about TE startups, Rivian and Lucid? Can they deliver a car in the end or go bust? No, they're both gonna deliver vehicles. They both have vehicles, functional vehicles. Motor Trend just drove the R1T and the Lucid Air sedan, both versions of the Lucid Air sedan. Both cars got a lot of praise. They're both going to do fine. Now, will they do fine in 5 to 10 years? That is very different. That is very different. My Roadster got delayed again because I bad about Elon. You know what? If I could find one of these, not the toy, if I had the money, I would love to own an OG Tesla Roadster, because as far as I'm concerned, that was an amazing car. I really enjoyed driving it. It's the first sports EV I've ever got behind the wheel of, and I really enjoyed driving it. This was a gift from someone who used to work at Tesla in the UK. She got it for me because I had, when I used to work at Green Car Reports, there was a green Tesla, the same color as this, that I regularly borrowed for doing video reviews or work on. And she joked that it was my Tesla. It wasn't my Tesla. It got sold in the end, but it was the one that I always ended up taking. So that was fun. Fine, so they can make more money. Capitalism, but don't force me to buy one via an ICE ban. I don't know what you're saying there, Frank. Would there be a market for the MG ZS EV in the US? Amazingly low price point in the UK. I'd buy one because I think they're great looking cars. No, I think America likes SUVs and pickup trucks too much. I find that 2011 to 2015, the idea was to get people into EVs and educate them. And now 2021 idea is to sell at the most money, making the used affordable market slim. I think also, obviously, as I said, chip shortage has been a problem. People who would normally go and buy a new car are now buying used cars on a whim. As we said, look, this is the challenge, right? EVs are so good long term, very little to go wrong with them, that you're seeing cars go for stupid prices on the used market. Now, obviously, this is a pretty good value Nissan Leaf. But it's a 2012, right? It's a 2012 Nissan Leaf with 40,000 miles on the clock for $8,000. That is pretty good, but it's still like kind of expensive if you compared it to another 2012 car. This one here, oh goodness, let's look at this one. 2011 Nissan Leaf. Oh, this is an OG. Yeah, this is an OG Nissan Leaf, right? I wonder if they have the battery information here. Nope. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can find the battery. I bet there isn't a photo of the gauge. There isn't. All right, so this is something that you need to be careful of, right? So if you're buying a used Nissan Leaf, you might look at this and go, "Oh, okay, stains in the cut of that. Those are terrible stains. Those original OG Leafs, the interiors did stain pretty badly." I don't think there's any picture of the gasometer, and I'd like to bet that that's for a reason, because this car company is aware that you couldn't do it. Budget for a replacement battery, says Andrew. It depends who you go to. In Portland, you can go to there's a specialist that we've covered before, EV Rides. They do battery swaps, and they'll put a new battery in, so you could buy that for $7,000 and then buy sort of 10 grand's worth of battery. But then you've got a $17,000 car, and again, that is ridiculously expensive, right? Tesla Model 3 long range, going for, this is a used Tesla, right? A used Tesla for $51,000. It is bonkers. And what worries me is there are very few affordable EVs. So let me see if I can do this by lowest price. OG, original, like one of the very first Nissan Leafs. So, I mean, this is ridiculously expensive for a Chevy Spark. $9,100, right? For a Chevrolet Spark EV. And let's find out if we know. This looks like it might be, it's a 1LT, so it's not even the high-end one. So I don't think that even had DC fast charging. And you think people are just desperate to buy EVs right now. So if you have any more questions, send them my way. And this is because, we've been talking about this among the team here. The used car market will remain a niche. Yep. That's hard on low income people. It really is. And it's so frustrating. because the thing that we really need now is affordable used EVs. Look at this. This is ridiculous. Why would someone be paying $14,300 for a 2016 Spark EV? That is ridiculous. And there's no pictures of the charge inlet, so you don't know if this has got a high. You don't know if there is a DC fast charge. There is there's no note of that in here, and that is ridiculous. Why am I not at IAA? Okay, let's stop looking at used cars. Why am I not at IAA? It's 3 reasons. 1, nobody invited us to IAA, so no automakers invited us to IAA. 2, the cost, obviously, of going to IAA is pretty expensive. And 3, COVID. I am going to a couple of events in the next couple of weeks. I am going to Colorado next week, and then immediately after I'm going to Tennessee, which makes me hellishly nervous because of COVID. But I have some N95 masks, so that's good. And we'll be filming 2 different events there, and then at the end of the month, we're also going down to Arizona to an event down there. So we're doing 3 things. But why the IAA is it's a big auto show. It takes place in Munich. It used to take place elsewhere. It happens in Germany every year. It used to be in Frankfurt, and now it's in Munich. And we could go, but for me to go on my own would be a real challenge, because it would be very difficult to film if it was just me. So we'd have to take at least one other person. And the same reason that we didn't go to Fully Charged Live is the cost of travel right now and the risks associated with COVID. For those who don't know, I'm not an at-risk person. I have been vaccinated. I am not an at-risk person. But I am someone who, if I was to become sick and I needed hospitalization, a lot of the drugs that are given to COVID patients would not be able to be given to me. Does that make sense? So the medication, a lot of the medication that you would give to someone who has COVID to help them kind of recover couldn't be given to me because of my long QT syndrome. So that's the answer. I would have loved to have been there, but normally automakers invite YouTube channels to go to events. I don't know if you know that, and we tend not to get a whole lot of invites to stuff. We would love to go. So if you're an automaker and you'd like us to go, put in a good word. All right. What's the EV tax credit in Oregon? $2,500, I believe. But you have to keep the car for 2 years, and there are some other kind of there are some income restrictions. So you have to have under a certain income. If you have over a certain income, you can't get it. There are some Trumpian plague rats in the auto industry. Let's not call them Trumpian. Let's call them people who are out to get lots of money and don't care who they step on to get there. That would be a good way. I need a European correspondent. I'd just love to go more often. I mean, I really miss going back to the UK. I haven't been to the UK since Fully Charged Live 2019. That was the last time I was in the UK. I miss seeing my mum. I miss seeing the UK. But right now I'm, What are your thoughts on buying a used Model S? I'm turning in my Bolt due to being unable to use it, and coincidentally someone I know is trading the SN. I'm thinking of taking it for trade-in price. It depends, Andrew, on what year and what year it is and what version it is. So the wisdom is that you don't want to buy a Model S before 2015. If it's newer than 2015, you should be fine. I wouldn't generally go for anything older than a 2015. A lot of the earlier Bolts Bolts. A lot of the earlier Model S's did have some issues, the drivetrain and some other stuff. And when things go wrong with those earlier cars, it can be really expensive to fix. You would be very pleased to know that we are working on a video exactly about that. Winter is making a video, so keep watching. All right. Any update on how your house solar is performing? Yeah. Tell you what. Let me give you some update here. I can probably do this if you give me 30 seconds. Let me see if I can log in. I'll log in, and then you can see exactly what our system is doing. As you were asking. I don't know if I can log in. You're asking me to do something that's difficult. Gonna let me sign in? Let's see. It won't let me do it on there, but I can do it on my phone. Jude, good night. It's 4 a.m. Go to bed. Let me go to my end phase. So everything's working well with my solar panels. We're having a great time there. We're going to be doing another video on it soon. So far this month, we have produced... have to use it. So far this month, all right, so it is what, September 6th today? So far this month, we have produced 373.3 kilowatt hours. In August, we produced 1.8 megawatt hours. And so far this year, we have produced 9.3 megawatt hours. You probably can't see that, but here we go. 9.3. Oh, help if I do it like that. 9.3 megawatt hours. Come on, camera, focus. 9.3 megawatt hours of electricity. So, nice. Just hit 100 megawatt hours lifetime last month. Yeah. Someone was asking if there's any update on my Bolt buyback. No, GM has stopped calling everybody, as far as I'm aware. I was told 2 weeks ago we'd hear back in 5 days, and we haven't heard anything. But that is where it is. At first I thought dealers were playing tricks on EV prices, but your explanation now makes sense. Yeah. So new car dealerships aren't getting their cars, like the dealerships are not getting cars from manufacturers. A lot of manufacturers are still doing we build what we think is going to sell. The dealerships get them in and then flog them. But Ford is going to a build to order only. And it's going to do that for the F-150 Lightning. It's done it for the Bronco. And it's kind of doing it for the Mustang Mach-E. I wonder why you're not invited to those events. Is it because you're in the US and this is in your ship? No, some news outlets are going to events. We don't make a huge amount of extra money. We operate very leanly. We produce 15, 16 videos a week on this channel. And so we don't have a lot of extra spare cash to send out to do things. I pay myself below minimum wage. And going to car shows is expensive. If COVID is okay, we'll go to CES in Las Vegas. JCB has launched... JCB Air launches had £1 billion fund to put Britain at forecourt of hydrogen revolution. Wants to burn hydrogen in their engines, not HFC. Made a number of villages on this. I don't know. I haven't looked at that yet, so that's an interesting. Have I seen Quinn from Snazzy Labs brand new US Model Y? No, I haven't. The last thing I saw from Quinn was he was putting a new front end on his car, like a custom end. So there we go. I was curious what you think of Electrify America getting that app now on Android Auto and CarPlay. Do you think others like EVgo Blink or EV Connect will follow? Yeah, I do. And I think it's a great idea. You know, I like having CarPlay. I love it. I like having a better route planner on CarPlay. It works really well. So yeah, I really think it's a good thing. Anything that makes EV use and charging easier, I am happier about. Are you going to get a battery system for the house solar? Yes, we are. It's called a Ford F-150 Lightning. So the answer for the reason for that, Will, is that the F-150 Lightning, right, has I think probably a 150 to 250 kilowatt hour battery pack. It has the ability to output 10 kilowatts instantaneously through the vehicle to home system, the Pro Power thing. And that's enough to keep us going. And we're not necessarily looking to be completely off grid or anything, but if we have a power cut or anything like that, being able to run the house is a very good idea. And we'd rather put the money into a vehicle as well than and have that vehicle to be connectable to the grid. Now, here's something that you're not going to hear very often. I suspect that Ford's system might be rolled out to other vehicles. And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. And the reason we're buying the F-150 Lightning is because we do a lot of driving. We do a lot of gear. Right, so this is one of the cameras one of the GoPros that we take. And when I do an event, I'll take 5 of these, which is fine. Small amount of stuff, that's fine. But when we're doing a big event like CES, we take 2 desktop computers for editing video on the go. We take we have 3 tripods, big tripods. We've got 4 camera rigs. We've got sound gear, microphones, boom poles, light stands, lights, a lot of stuff. And putting that plus the crew in a vehicle and driving it is cheaper than flying. So that's what we're going to do. But also, when it comes to the house, we live in rural Oregon. A pickup is useful because our road never gets salted in the winter. And if we get snow, we get snow. And so we'll have solar on the roof of the house. We'll have the F-150 will be my truck. It will be on the driveway most of the time. I will use it for work. So going to events, it will be a truck that we use for work. We'll make videos about it. So it will be a business expense. We will have the Mustang Mach-E for my wife. Assuming that nothing bad happens to the batteries. And remember, we can back out of that until it's on the forecourt. We can still back out of it. And that's not expected until January, February, maybe even March. We may get the Lightning at the same time. Maybe a fun couple of months. What extra power hardware is required to hook the F-150 up to power the house? F-150 requires a special box that connects to the house and includes an inverter. So it's really interesting how it works. The F-150 Lightning setup is very interesting the way it sets up, because it has sorry, that was my wife trying to reach me, so I'm going to go in a minute. The F-150 Lightning has an inverter that's off the house. 1 second. I'm going to have to send a message. Let me just send that. So the F-150 has a setup that allows you to take power out of the DC port and goes to a wall box, which then has an inverter in it that then feeds it into your grid. So that's what you need. And I think it's going to be quite expensive, but I think it'll probably be worth it. I'm going to go now because I was only going to stream for an hour and it's nearly an hour and a half. But thank you for joining me. It's been fun. Normal service will be resumed tomorrow. And we'll do normal stuff tomorrow. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. It's been fun to talk, and hopefully I will see you on the channel again soon. Thanks for watching. Keep evolving.